If you're anything like me, you grew up playing Flash games. They were a childhood staple for anyone growing up in the 2000s. And honestly, they're a great introduction to gaming, as there's such a wide variety of genres, and the barrier to entry was so low for creating them that you got a huge amount of creative expression in them as well. Shout out to my Dirk Valentine fans. You're the real ones. And if you're really like me, and for your sake I hope you're not, then one of your favorites might have been a certain series of Flash games called Trials. Or maybe you remember Trials Dynamite Tumble. They were classics of the Flash era, boasting far more advanced physics systems than seen in almost any other Flash games, and providing a fresh twist on the classic 2D platformer formula that was so prevalent in Flash games of the era. Well, it turns out I wasn't alone in liking those games, and quickly, Red Lynx, helmed by Finnish brothers Ahti and Antti Ilvesuo, sorry for the pronunciation, began work on a console follow-up, Trials HD. This was followed up by the version most people are familiar with, Trials Evolution. These two titles would go on to become the 11th and 3rd, or 13th and 15th depending on the source, best-selling XBLA titles of the whole X360 era, outselling titles like Call of Duty 1 on 360, Limbo, Doritos Crash Course, and the Real Steel tie-in game. The combination of extreme difficulty with instant respawns led to an addictive loop akin to some of the other indie hits of the time like Super Meat Boy. And with the Ubisoft acquisition between Trials HD and Trials Evolution, the series was riding high. With the release of the next generation of consoles, we also got the next entry in the Trials series, Trials Fusion, released just 5 months after the launch of the new generation of consoles. Gone was the grungy, edgy, extreme sports aesthetic of the 360 era, replaced by a new, clean, futuristic look. The proximity to a new console launch, combined with the first simultaneous multi-platform release in the series, meant that Trials Fusion sold through 1 million copies in less than 6 months. A lot of people have fond memories of Fusion, as it was a common purchase for new console owners due to its affordable price tag and fantastic reviews. This led to 7 DLC packs and an extremely passionate fan community, boasting over 220,000 community-made tracks as of 2025. There is also a community-driven tournament scene, and an active speedrunning community competing for the top spots on the leaderboards. With all this positive sentiment and a strong player base, Red Lynx moved into development on the next entry in the series. When the first trailers started to roll out, you could see an interesting split in the comment sections. While Fusion performed extremely well, it also split the player base, as some missed the grittier, grungier aesthetic and despised new features like the FMX trick system or bikes like the ATV and Unicorn, and a lot of these players were excited for Rising to go back to the series' more grounded roots. Conversely, however, there were many who were disappointed in the new, more grounded direction, as the over-the-top, goofy style of Fusion was a big appeal to them. And these fans would also bemoan the seeming lack of new features in this entry compared to Fusion, which brought lots of new features compared to Evolution. Unfortunately, development information is extremely hard to come by for this game. From what I can find though, this was the first game in the series to be co-developed by Ubisoft Kiev, with the majority of the programming taking place there rather than Red Lynx, who are more in charge of level design. In pre-release interviews, they shared that they wanted a bigger focus on multiplayer, and that they brought in many community members to consult on development, or outright join the level design team. I've reached out to multiple developers, but as of the time of writing, I've not heard back from any of them. I'm sad I can't find more information on the development of this game, because its disastrous launch is what led to the death of the series. Whether it was Ubisoft breathing down their neck, a new studio coming in to work on the game, or the new focus on multiplayer and netcode stealing dev time from the base game, something went seriously wrong in this game's development. It's all made more confusing because it doesn't have any of the usual hallmarks of a troubled development. It didn't take 10 years, but it also wasn't rushed in one. They were not developing any other titles at the same time, and it wasn't a transition to a new engine, so annoyingly, it only makes it more confusing when on launch, it suffered from frame drops, online server issues, crashes, failing to launch, insane load times, and the aforementioned divided fanbase meant that this game had a very rocky reception with the fans. This, in combination with it releasing at the very tail end of the PS4 Xbox One era, meant that while the game had a decent launch, sales fell off a cliff shortly afterwards. Sadly, as is often the way with games that underperform, the exact sales numbers are nearly impossible to find for consoles. However, I can give an estimate based on player numbers on PC. With Trials Evolution peaking at 4,300 concurrent players on Steam, Fusion reaching 2,400, and then rising only ever reaching 1700, which paints the picture of a far less successful game than the previous entries. With the new, more arcadey driving physics often cited by the die-hard player base as being inferior to the more weighty and complex physics in Fusion. For that reason, most of them migrated back to Fusion after the launch of Rising. So what is Rising actually like? Well, despite all the controversy regarding this game, I think it's incredible. But before we dive too deep, what actually is a Trials game? They're uniquely hard to put a genre on, because they have racing elements with time trials, medals, and speedrunning based leaderboards, but then they also have a lot of platforming elements in them as well, with the latter half of these games generally trending more towards tracks where the goal is simply beating them rather than beating them as fast as possible. The tracks become full of obstacles that require lots of precision and technical movements to cross, compared to the smoother flowing maps of the easier difficulties that are far more intended for getting the fastest times. So calling it a platformer or a racing game doesn't feel quite right. Trials is always just being Trials, a unique blend of both. Some people call these games rage games, akin to something like QWOP or Getting Over It. Games where the control scheme is intentionally challenging, with the goal of annoying or amusing the player with the unique challenge. However, I don't think this quite fits either, as Trials is actually super intuitive once you get the hang of it. While the first few hours will certainly be full of frustration as you get to grips with the weird control scheme, once you do, it's shockingly intuitive. You only have 4 buttons in Trials: accelerate, brake/reverse, lean forward, and lean backward. From there, the entire game is physics-based, with everything from the grip of your tires to the suspension of the bike being physics-driven. This means that the game is extremely easy to pick up, as you can usually intuit how to cross any obstacle by thinking about it like it's the real world. Climbing a hill? Lean forwards, because the power in the rear wheel will make you tip if you don't. Need to cross a gap which has no ramp before it? Lean back to put weight on your rear suspension, then throw yourself forward to use the spring of the bike to bunny hop. This intuitive approach means that every obstacle, no matter how impossible they seem at first, can be figured out if you just stop and think through the physics of it all. Once you master the feel of these physics and these bikes, it is truly something special. The feeling of being able to fly through courses that you once found nearly unbeatable, and the joy of seeing a new obstacle, now knowing how to get over it, and then being able to execute the technique perfectly, is a kind of satisfaction that most other games can never meet. This brings me on to the other reason I don't consider the Trials games rage games: their attitude towards the player. In proper rage games, they are set up for you to fail. They want you to fail. That's the intended experience. And they want to draw those feelings of frustration out of you. They give you no checkpoints, lots of memorization, or traps to catch you off guard. But in Trials, you always get the feeling the developers are cheering you on rather than waiting to laugh at your failure. Every obstacle gets a checkpoint, and failure is met with an instant respawn, so the next attempt is never more than seconds away. Instead of cautiously creeping forward, waiting for the next point of failure to set you back minutes, you're encouraged to throw yourself into the next obstacle, because even if you mess it up, there's no real penalty for it. You're also constantly met with the applause of the watching crowds, their excited cheers greeting every successful or unsuccessful attempt. There's also a joy to these games you just don't find in a rage game, because instead of the game taking joy in your failure, you're invited to share in the joy of your success instead. And once you can consistently find that success, the next level of trying to achieve it quickly can be truly euphoric. Whoa. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Because of this entirely physics-based, but intuitive control scheme, it means you never have to master insane physics-breaking nonsense to get the best times. If you watch any world record run, they aren't doing any crazy techniques that you could never hope to replicate yourself. They're just using the techniques you already know, but doing them with such precision and grace that they are almost flying. This makes for a far more encouraging feeling than checking in on a speedrun just to see them no-clipping through the entire level while pressing 17 buttons simultaneously. This encouragement is further assisted by the truly incredible tutorials this game offers. I have legitimately never seen a better tutorial in any game I've ever played. Each tutorial breaks down a different kind of common obstacle or technique and shows you every step of how to do it, including slow motion replays, showing it used in multiple contexts, and giving you timing cues for when to press each button. Then you are put into courses that force you to use this new technique to complete them, giving you increasingly difficult obstacles that force you to truly understand the technique at a deeper level, rather than simply showing you a quick video and sending you on your way. This means that assuming you don't skip them, there will never be an obstacle you don't know how to traverse, or a trick you don't know how to do. Honestly, this sets an incredible benchmark for any technical game like this. I bet if fighting games had tutorials this good, a lot more people would get into them. Furthermore, these tutorials are created by a YouTube channel called University of Trials, who made in-depth tutorial videos for the previous games on his channel, and then Redlings brought him in to just make official tutorials for Rising. And I know that Professor Fat Shady watches Trials videos, so if you're watching this one, shout out man, you did a truly incredible job. These tutorials mean that the game has an extremely smooth difficulty curve, as every time you unlock a new difficulty of track, the University of Trials is there to teach you how to beat them. This commitment to fun can be seen in almost all aspects of this game. Booting it up, I was immediately struck by the fantastically nostalgic aesthetic of old extreme sports games, with the graffiti, skulls, grungy real-world settings, and the absolutely banging soundtrack. Redlings managed to pick out a truly fantastic selection of butt rock, metal, 2010s dubstep, and cheesy 90s hip-hop to score these tracks. Now don't get me wrong, I don't mean any of that in a bad way whatsoever. In fact, I mean it as a compliment. I honestly couldn't think of a more perfect score for this game, matching the endearingly edgy style with endearingly cheesy tunes. With a soundtrack this in your face, Redlings added a feature that I think any game with lots of licensed music should include. You can skip songs from the pause menu, so if the same song has come up too many times in a row, or you find it a particularly grating one, you can just skip it. They have also curated selections to fit with the themes of the different locations the tracks are set in. Snowy tracks get electronic, American tracks get rock and roll, extreme tracks get heavy metal. It all fits and does a lot to help these tracks from getting old. 150 hours in, and there's only 3 tracks in the whole soundtrack I'll skip if they come on, with this game even introducing me to some new bands that I still listen to. Continuing with this punk rock counterculture style, the game has a huge focus on customization and player expression, with every single item from your rider's clothes to the bodywork on your bike, allowing for up to 200 stickers each. You can scale, rotate, and color every single one to create any look you want. You're further incentivized to create aesthetically appealing designs, as you can sell your custom designs in the in-game store, and if players buy them, you get a cut of the in-game currency. How you unlock these customization options, however, is where one of my few real complaints with the game comes in. This game is loot boxes, and it sucks. No way to get around it. It really sucks that for a game with such incredible customization, your ability to unlock some things is tied to pure RNG. Luckily, you unlock them pretty fast and easily, and you can use in-game currency to purchase the vast majority of cosmetics and stickers, as well as being able to re-roll loot boxes to try and get better gear, meaning that I've always been able to get the customization items I wanted eventually, but it still sucks. It is fun though to see all the crazy customizations other players have created when watching replays or seeing them in loading screens. Personally, I spend at least an hour on every bike trying to create the most aesthetically pleasing bikes I can. You can also tell that the devs clearly have this same love of expression and customization themselves, as all the levels give off an almost Little Big Planet feeling, as you can see how they've used the in-game level editor to make levels by mashing together props, stickers, and maps. The creativity on display is just fantastic. The theming of traveling the world lending to amazing track design as you climb the Eiffel Tower, jump through the Australian outback, or race through an African fishing town. Red Lynx also shows a clear love for their community, as Rising features the voices of Gavin Free and Jack Patillo from Achievement Hunter as rider voices, and has a fan-made theme song, complete with cheesy lyrics about the game.
The world complete another revolution. Another step, a giant leap forward for human evolution. A clever fusion of the past and present, ever moving. Shaving a second off the record when they cut the grooving.
And as previously mentioned, Red Lynx brought in prolific community mappers to join the level design team, and it shows, as the level of creativity and the awesome driving lines speak to a deep understanding and love for the game. This was a somewhat controversial move, however, as Rising focuses a bit harder on the racing side of Trials than previous entries, with most tracks being somewhat easier to traverse, with less momentum-stopping obstacles. I personally find this to be a huge bonus, as the smooth flow and driving lines these tracks provide just feels so much more satisfying than the sometimes stop-start feel of the tracks in Fusion. The tracks in Rising often have multiple paths stacked on top of each other, allowing for a skilled rider to fly through them in one smooth, unbroken line, making replaying the levels to get those platinum or even diamond medals a real joy. I also like that if you aren't into that, the platinum and diamond medals won't even show up on the score screen unless you actually take the time to unlock them, which makes it far less discouraging for those who struggle more with getting the hang of the controls, or just don't care for speedrunning at all. You are encouraged to race for those medals though, as every time you enter a new track, you'll be racing alongside a ghost of someone who got a bronze, silver, and gold medal, letting you track your own pace and have goals to beat right from the start. In past Trials games, these ghosts were just points in space to show pace, but in Rising, they're full-on ghosts, letting you see the cosmetics, racing lines, and leans of the other riders. I can't count how many times this helped me beat a new track, by seeing 3 other riders completing the same obstacles alongside me. Many times, it also helped to push me to get that gold or platinum, as I could see myself racing against someone else's ghost, and the thrill of passing them was extremely motivating. If, however, you are like me and still want more challenge, these games have famously difficult but rewarding achievements, which force you to truly unlock your full potential to see that glorious 100%. They range from simple things, like getting a gold on every single track, to something truly insane, like holding a wheelie for 150 meters in the loose screw map, and only letting your front wheel touch down in designated safe zones. This single 30-second run took me over 12 hours of attempts to complete. Then there's the goofy achievements, like collecting every hidden squirrel, which isn't just a collectathon, but instead introduces all new challenges, like navigating an underwater maze, or unlocking new, higher difficulty sections of the track, or having to complete a hard course using the ridiculous tandem bike, where you have a second player riding the same bike as you, forcing you both to work together to complete even the simplest of obstacles.
Oh, no! You're fucking joking! No! Oh, fuck. Oh my god! Third time's the charm.
Yes! That was so much harder than it needed to be.
Jesus
Holy shit.
Dude, that last bit I was actually like pitching one off.
Oh my god, that was ridiculous. You can tell how much fun the devs had making all these, and not going for them honestly feels like you're missing out. The 100% journey will take you through every inch of this game and force you to become a better player than you might have ever thought possible. Finally, if all that still isn't enough for you, there's Track Central, where you can upload and download community-made maps from the insanely in-depth track editor. These tracks truly show how much love this community has for this series, with their tracks often being some of the most beautiful, jaw-dropping tracks in the game, with truly incredible scenery that would have taken hours upon hours of careful crafting to create, made even more impressive because there's no way to import your own models, meaning all this scenery had to be created by mashing up game objects that already existed, combined with some of the most fluid and satisfying driving lines this game has to offer. Alternatively, you can explore the ridiculous stuff you can push this level editor to create, like a recreation of Fall Guys, or what about a full-on aerial dogfighting game? Every time I try out new community maps, I'm just floored by the sheer talent and love demonstrated by this community, turning it from just a track editor to an art form, all of which makes what I have to say next even more heartbreaking. I absolutely adore this game, and I think that everyone should try it. I have played over 150 hours and gotten every single achievement in the game, and I was never once bored during that entire duration. I believe it is truly a masterpiece, but there's a reason that most of you have probably never even heard of it, and a reason it doesn't get the love that Fusion or Evolution do. Rising is a complete mess technically. Huge frame stutters are to be expected every few minutes, even on console. The load times for tracks are truly horrendous, made even more annoying by the fact that they're only slow because they're getting the online ghost data from Ubisoft servers, and there's no way to turn that off outside of playing offline. And most egregious of all, if you buy this game, there's about an 80% chance it simply will not work. For the vast majority of PC players, this game will just not launch. This is inexcusable. I have played games over 3 decades old that are easier to get running than this game is. As of now, Rising requires this entire process to simply start up on PC. First, you have to enter this launch command if you're using a CPU made within the last 5 years. Then if that doesn't work, you have to go into the game files, find the exe, and set it to run with admin privileges. Then if that doesn't work, you have to go to Windows Settings for Developers, then enable sudo, then go to Windows PowerShell, make sure to run that as an administrator, then run these commands to navigate to the game's folder, then run the exe through sudo, which, if you are lucky, will actually make it boot up. Even with all that, there are still players who simply can't make it work. And if it does work, you're going to want to make sure you disable sudo once you're done each time, as it can pose a potential security risk to your PC if you leave it on all the time, as if you end up getting any malware or remote access hacks, it provides an easy way to bypass user control settings. Furthermore, Ubisoft has no intention of fixing these issues, and the last actual content update this game got was back in 2020, with the only updates since adding Steam achievements that don't even work. Since Rising's release, Redlinks has been relegated to a support studio for Ubisoft's other projects. And as both of the original founders and fathers of the Trials series have left the company, there's most likely no hope that we will ever see this series again. Furthermore, with Ubisoft being so awful at game preservation that they were the catalyst for the Stop Killing Games movement, who knows how much longer these games and all their incredible community-made content will be around for. Rising is especially vulnerable, as that fantastic soundtrack I mentioned earlier won't last forever, and I guarantee that no one at Ubisoft cares enough to either remove the soundtrack when those licenses run out, or spend the money to keep renewing them in the years to come, meaning that we are currently witnessing the slow and painful death of one of the best series of video games ever made. Ending not with a bang, but with a whimper. However, it is for this exact reason that I implore you to try this series while you still can. There is nothing else like it, and there probably won't be anything like it again. The mixture of extreme difficulty, goofy humor, and high technical skill isn't seen anywhere else in gaming. So take a chance and buy Rising. If it doesn't work, then refund it and buy Fusion, which at the time of writing still works perfectly and still has servers, because the sheer love and passion on display in every one of these games is something worth celebrating, and the genuine joy these games bring, whether played casually, competitively, or just as a goofy party game, is something to hold on to, and something that deserves to be remembered.
And the emptiness in space.